Hey, what's going on everyone? My name is Garrett Blackwood. Welcome back to the vlog here in sunny Los Angeles. Very quick introduction before we get into today's session. Next week, Wednesday the 25th of October, I will be playing on the Hustler live stream for the very first time. I'm super excited. The game is going to be 25, 50, 100s. Yeah, really excited to be playing, and I'll be giving away 1% of my action for free. Full details of that in the next vlog, but make sure you're subbed so you don't miss out. On to today's session. Yeah, fun 5, 5, 10 coming your way. Let's check out some hands. I am so excited to be playing on the Hustler live stream for the first time ever next week on Wednesday, the 25th of October. I'll be giving away 1% of my action completely free. So make sure you guys are subbed to the channel so you don't miss out on that. Full details to come in the next episode. On to today's session, starting off with a fun one. I am on the button and look down at the one and only pocket aces. I raise it on up to $35 and everybody folds. You get aces once every 220 hands. And in live poker, that's like 4 days. This is such a waste. All right, on to some serious stuff now. I'm in the hijack with Queen Jack offsuit and raise it on up to $30. It falls round to the big blind who makes the call. We're going heads up to our first flop of the day here. It is 10-6-3 with 2 hearts. I've got a couple of overcards and some backdoors, and I don't block ace or king high, so I decide to see bet here for $55. The big blind isn't going anywhere just yet. He makes the call. To the turn, it's an offsuit deuce. Lots of higher equity bluffs here in my range, so when he checks to me, I decide to just check back, see a free river. To that river, it's a board pairing 3. The big blind now leads out for $125. Now, he is very capable of finding a lot of random flop floats that now start bluffing the river. A very creative player indeed, and I'm reading him as kind of weak here, so I decide to bluff raise the river to $400. It's a little ambitious, but like I said, this player is very capable of being creative. Not this time though. He's got queen 10 of spades and is of course not folding that. I would not expect him to fold that, to be honest. I proudly show my queen high and tell him I thought he was bluffing, as he laughs and drags in the pot. All right, next up, I am in the cutoff with ace, jack of hearts, the prettiest of suits, we can all agree. Under the gun is raised to $30. Can call this sometimes with the right players behind, but I decide to just put in the re-raise here to $100. Action is now on the pro in the small blind who's got that glint in his eye, and sure enough, he puts in the cold 4-bet to $300. Something quite unexpected then happens as the original raiser decides to flat call this cold 4-bet. This would have been kind of close for me versus just the small blind, but when the original raiser calls, my odds are now better and I can happily make the call as well. We go 3 ways to the flop here. It comes down 3-3 deuce all black, completely the opposite of what we're looking for. It does somehow check to me though, and I am very happy to check back and see a free turn card, which is a double flush draw 7. Somehow, some way, it once again checks round to me. Now this might seem like a good stab spot, but I've got way better hands to stab here. Flush draws, gut shots, those types of hands. So I just check this one back to the river. It's the 7 of hearts. Once again, it checks to me. I snap check back. The small blind turns over ace king of spades for a very sneaky flop and turn check, and under the gun has got ace king offsuit. I delightedly show my hand here for a 3-way chop. Very, very happy to get my money back. All right, next up, I won the absolute minimum with my aces earlier today. Let's hope these aces work out a little better. It's not looking good, though, when it folds all the way around to me in the middle blind. I raise it on up to $35. The big blind throws in a couple of chips. To the flop, wait, hang on. Those aren't calling chips. Those are raising chips. He makes it a whopping $225 to go. I can barely contain my glee as I cut out the 4-bet to $575. I am praying my opponent doesn't fold, and sure enough, he makes the call. Heads up to the flop with almost $1,200 in there. It is king 8-8 with 2 hearts. I want to get value, but I also don't want him to fold anything. So I put a very, very small c-bet here for $200. Once again, praying he doesn't fold. And thankfully for me, he does continue. He makes the call. To the turn, it is a queen. This might look a little scary, but I think he just always goes with it pre-flop with kings and queens. So it's only really an 8-7 suited type hand that beats me here. And if he's got that, well, he can have my money. I decide to just go ahead and move all in here on the turn. I fade the absolute snap call, and after a few seconds, he picks up his cards to show me he's got king, queen offsuit. I know he's not folding this now. He knows I can have ace, king. He actually says it feels like aces, but of course he can't fold. He shouldn't fold. He makes the call, and I show him the bad news. We run it twice, and 2 absolute bricks later, I scoop in this pot worth $3,600. Biggest pot of the day so far. Bit of an ugly turn for the big blind there, but I will of course take it. All right, next up, I am on the button with Queen 8 of Hearts. It folds round to me, and I put in the raise to $35. I'm going to get called by both the small blind and the big blind here. Going to go 3 ways to the flop, which is Queen 9-7 Rainbow. Top pair and some backdoors to go along with it. I decide to put in the C-bet for $50. The small blind is a guy from the last hand. He's having a very tough day so far today, and he puts in the raise to $125. It falls to me, and I'm probably not ahead now, but of course not going anywhere just yet. I make the call, and we see a turn, which is the 6 of Hearts. Couldn't have picked a better turn card for me, to be honest, apart from maybe an 8. The small blind is now reaching for chips, and he fires again for $200. I'm for sure not ahead right now, but I've got a zillion outs, so I go ahead and make the call, hoping to pour more misery on this guy, but in a nice way, of course. He's a super nice guy. To the river, it is a black king, swing and a miss for me, and when he checks, I just check it back. He shows me Queen 10 of spades for a bit of a milk fest, to be honest. Fair play to him for extracting a few $100 out of me here. This guy was having a really tough day up until this point, but somehow manages to turn it around and win most of it back in the end. All right, next up was a fun hand. Not so much for the poker, but the tiny bit of drama that comes along with it. I am in the cutoff with pocket threes. Straddle is now on, so I raise the run up to $50. It falls to the middle blind, who is a good aggressive reg. He puts in the re-raise to $220. He's having a good day today as well, so we're a little bit deeper at this point. I decide to go ahead and call, see if I can flop a set. To the flop, it is Jack 5 deuce with 2 diamonds. He bets out for $140. I'm in position. I've got a backdoor straight draw, and my hand likes to bluff on certain runouts, so I go ahead and make the call. To the turn we go. It's an offsuit 5. He now checks, and this is not one of the turns my hand likes to bluff on. It's more the big cards when he starts to check. So I decide to check it back, see if we can take this to showdown. The river is an offsuit 7, and the middle blind quickly leads out for 1/3 pot. Not many live pros here will have 2 sizes, but this guy is definitely good enough to do so. I'm thinking about folding. I'm thinking about calling. I'm also thinking about maybe raising. I'm in the tank for 75 seconds when C8 scowls and calls the clock. Okay.
Polk. Yeah, like actually, like I'm not trying to be a dick. It is
Norman!
I had just made up my mind at this point that I was folding, but now when the floorman comes over, I'm going to take the full minute just to be a bit petulant. The clock counts down as I fake agonize over my decision, knowing full well that I'm going to fold, and just at the last second, I go ahead and mark my cards. A little surprised that the clock was called here. I like to think that I played quite quickly, but who knows, maybe we'll get some revenge later. Alright, next up is one of the sickest hands that anyone has ever played in the history of any poker game anywhere. Maybe not, but you guys are still going to very much enjoy this one. I'm in the middle blind with a couple of J-boys. The pro that I was playing against in the previous hand is opening on up to $60 in the cutoff. I put the price of poker up to $240. Really good hand to do this with. And the big blind now cold calls this raise. Alright, we got a pot building action back on the cutoff, and he calls as well. We're going to go 3 ways to the flop here, which is a very safe looking 9-8 deuce rainbow. I decide to C-bet here, but I think my size is a little too small. I go $250. I think half pot might have been better here. The big blind is going to make the call, a little concerned as he can have some flop sets. And the cutoff calls as well. He's very likely to just flat call with his sets and his 2 pairs on this board, so I'm definitely a little worried that we might be behind here. To the turn we go. It is the 7 of spades. A flush draw is now possible, and it's a very connected turn. So I decide versus 2 players, I want to check my hand. Happy to see the big blind check as well. The cutoff is not going to check. He puts out a bet for $850. Really don't love this, and I would probably consider folding my overpairs without a gut shot here, but with the gut shot and the straight blockers, I decide to make the call. The big blind makes a very quick call after I call. I know he's not beating me now because he would just shove. He's probably got some sort of 1 pair hand or draw or both. To the river we go. It's an offsuit 4, complete brick. Nothing changes here. And when we check to the cutoff, he moves all in for $1,700. Now, this is such a gross spot. On the one hand, I block the straight, but there are so many value hands in his range, and I block some of the only realistic bluffs that he can have here, like Queen Jack suited. He's also shoved into 2 people. How can he ever be bluffing here? I want to call so badly, but after a long tank, I decide that folding is the best option. I just sigh and let my hand go. The big blind snap folds 10-9 of spades face up, and the cutoff absolutely windmills ace jack of spades face up across the table. Everyone at the table is loving this, and you know what? So am I. It's a very ballsy bluff, and I've got nothing but respect to him for making it. Nice hand, sir. All right, after that massacre of a hand, it is back to work. I'm in the small blind and pick up pocket kings. The button is open to $50. I, of course, put in the re-raise to $210. And when it falls to the button, he makes the call. We're going heads up to the flop. Here is a very, very wet 9-7-6 all clubs. I got the king of clubs in my hand, so I decide to c-bet here for a small size. I bet $125. The button thinks for a few seconds before deciding to raise me to $400. Really surprised by this, and I don't love it one bit, but we're not that deep. I can still have the best hand quite often here, and if I'm behind, well, I'm only dead to the nut flush, so I decide to move all in here for $1,600 total. Maybe this is a little too loose, maybe I'm a tiny bit steamed up from the last hand, but I guess it doesn't matter as the button decides to fold his hand. He told me later that he had complete air and he expected me to fold a lot, which I guess is true, but fortunately for me, I had a decent hand this time. Alright, so the game is actually close to breaking now, and the young kid who called the clock on me earlier asked if I want to stick around and play a little bit of heads up. We agreed to play 45 minutes of 10-20, both with around $2,500 stacks. Heads up is really fast, and there were so many small to medium pots that I couldn't quite write down. I did manage to log two of the bigger pots of note though, first one of which I looked down on the button at pocket aces. Great start here, I raise it on up to $50. He makes a very quick 3-bet to $200, fucking beautiful stuff here. I of course put in the 4-bet to $480. Again, he makes a very quick call here. To the flop we go. It is Queen 8-4 Rainbow. Such a great flop. So many one-pair hands, gut shots, basically lots of weaker hands that can continue. He checks to me and I decide to c-bet for a small size. I bet $300 and again he makes a very quick call. The turn is a very clean 3 of hearts. There is a flush draw now, but I blocked that flush draw and I wanted to bluff some of his missed straight draws on the river, so I get a little sneaky here and check it on back. To the river it is a 10. Some 2 pairs and some straights get there, but he checks so quickly on the river. I'm really confident he doesn't have me beat here, so I move all in for $1,545. He snap calls. I turn my hand over and he says I'm good, let's go. A little scared after he snap called the river, but later he told me that he had king queen suited. Very standard call, of course. Nasty one for him, but a nice pot coming my way early in this heads up battle. Alright, final hand of note while playing heads up. I am on the button with ace jack of spades and raise it to $50. He puts in the 3-bet again to $200 and I make the call. The flop comes down ace 6 deuce all diamonds. He bets out for $100 and I decide to make the call. The turn is the 4 of hearts and he now checks. I probably should just bet the turn here. I've got a lot of bluffs in my range and he can call with a lot of worse hands, but I do decide to check it on back this time. To the river it is a deuce. The board pairs, but I'm not too worried about any full houses in his range, and he now bets out for $1,000. To be honest with you, I thought for a while and folded, but I think this is a very clear call. I know he's got a better ace for this size, and I expect his flop flushes to barrel the turn, so I'm a little disappointed in myself for this fold. But I do decide to let it go. He told me later he had king 10 offsuit with the king of diamonds. If that is true, it's a pretty sweet line from him all in all. We played for the agreed time. It was a lot of fun. He was actually a very nice kid and played really well during the heads up battle. I racked up my chips and headed to the cashier, booking a win for $1,750 total for the day.
Alright troops, that is going to do it for this episode. I won about $1,750. Fun episode, hopefully you guys enjoyed the show. Immediately after this session, which was played about 7 days ago, I went outside and kind of ranted to the camera for a few minutes about how poorly I have played up until today. You know, I was like double straddling and being the only one to do it, and like playing way too loose pre-flop and not being aggressive enough post-flop. I unfortunately deleted the outro, so I'm doing it here today. Yeah, up until this point I'd played really poorly on the trip, and today is a turning point for me. I played much better today. You know, I wasn't being the only one to double straddle, and I was really focused, and I wasn't playing too loose pre-flop and stuff like that. So now every time I go and play, I go in with a focus of just playing as well as I can. The results don't matter. For me, when I play online, I play as well as I can, but for whatever reason, when I got to LA, I wasn't playing as well as I could. I was just being too loose and too giddy and like trying to be a bit of a lad, you know, but I've stopped that now and I'm focusing on playing as well as I can. And hopefully it'll work out and I'll win a lot of money. But that'll do it for this week, guys. As mentioned, playing on the Hustler live stream next week. Click the sub button so you don't miss a giveaway in the next episode. Until that episode, take it easy.